Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell. Have you ever wondered what's happening with Spotify and wedding DJs? Well, to talk about that, I have Tarcy Schindelka from Advanced Entertainment, based in Alberta, Canada. Welcome to the show, Tarcy.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is an important topic that doesn't get talked about a lot, and the influence of Spotify and the growth of Spotify as well. But before we get into that, can you just share a heartwarming or memorable wedding moment?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, we've done so many weddings. I started DJing weddings in 1994, more than most people that are getting married today, but I think what I remember the most is not even when, typically it's the brides that come and say thank you and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the night, the groom with one of our weddings was so happy. He was the one that came over, gave me a hug and said, "You were amazing. Thank you. We had such a great time." And that's always what we're shooting for, is the smiles and the sore feet at the end of the night. And that's exactly what they got. And so he was super happy. So when I get a hug from the groom, that's, takes me, hey, we did a great job. Good.
It's kind of like, instead of the bride being behind the decks capturing that one photo, it's the groom who actually cares.
Exactly. She cared too, but he was the one that hugged me. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. If you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure. Well, my name's Tarcy, as mentioned, in Edmonton, Alberta. I own Advanced Entertainment. We have been in business since 2007. But like I said, I've been DJing since way back in 1994, officially 2 years before that on the amateur level kind of thing. Got 2 kids, got a wife and a dog sitting right here beside me as well. So I'm just your typical family guy trying to make a living and having a great time doing it.
You mentioned starting in 1994. I actually started my business in 1993. Crazy where the time goes.
I know. 30 years all of a sudden. What?
Yeah. As you said, starting in 1993, some of the couples weren't even born yet. So
Exactly. Yeah. Some of those younger ones just getting out of university, starting their lives. I like the experience because it's not, as always, not just them at the weddings. It's their parents and their aunts and uncles and grandparents that are going to be there as well. So having that wide knowledge comes in handy.
So speaking of that, as a tangent, are you seeing that music before, let's say, the 70s is really fading out?
Somewhat. I mean, the thing is even like, let's go to junior high dances. I will get a kid in grade 8 come up and request Led Zeppelin from me, kind of thing. And I go, what? or the Doors or what? I'm going, wow, either your parents are very widely musically versed, or TikTok is helping us out in that respect too. It's funny how these songs will come up. Like, you look at Fleetwood Mac a couple of years ago, hit the top 10 again because of a TikTok video. Right. So these apps are really bringing some of the oldies back now and again, too.
I think of Etta James. Even today, At Last is still a very popular wedding song. But I think of one of my favorites, Sunday Kind of Love. And you think, man, that's really fallen off. And hopefully somebody will do a TikTok of older songs.
Yeah, that's the hope, that they get picked up again, or somebody picks on it somewhere and boom, you've got it back in the forefront once again.
Yeah, for sure. At least it's helping those artists make money again.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
So let's get into talking about Spotify weddings. Have you seen a decline in recent years from couples that are choosing to go the Spotify route versus hiring a DJ?
Yes, overall, it really kind of depends on the couple, because I just booked a wedding last week for next year where the bride said that party and that music is the most important part to me, because that's what people are going to remember. But I mean, realistically, with the way life has gone here in the last few years, inflation is up. Everything's more expensive. Gas costs more to fill your tank. So I can see where people are kind of going, you know what, we need to save some money. So how are we going to do that? Where are we going to cut? And if that party and that music isn't as important to them, just having family together and doing the visiting and that kind of stuff, and maybe a little bit of dancing, that's where a Spotify or an Apple Music playlist or whatever will come in handy. And so we have been getting more calls this year for people just wanting to rent a sound system that they can plug their iPad or their laptop into or their phone into and just go from there.
One of the things that I'm thinking of is when you have a Spotify playlist versus a DJ can play the important parts of a song, and that's really the TikTok trend. And I think that having that Spotify playlist, that doesn't happen. You have to listen to the whole song. So
You know what? That again depends on that crowd, right? A lot of people, if you quick mix out of a song or play just one verse in the chorus and then move on, people look at you like, where's the rest of it, too? So it can happen either way. And that's where reading the room and knowing, having a meeting, sitting down with that bride and groom, and sometimes their immediate family, their parents that are part of that planning process as well. That's where it's kind of a golden thing in that we will have an idea as to who's going to be there and what they like and can play accordingly. So Spotify, you're right, has to play the whole song unless your drunk cousin comes up and gets a hold of things and starts pushing buttons, which can happen.
So besides saving on the budget, what would you say is an advantage to couples choosing the Spotify playlist?
Realistically, it's the fact that you know exactly what's going to be played, exactly what version, because there's different versions of every song out there. You know the version, you know the drum beat, you know exactly what's going to be on there. And you can make the separate playlist. Like, here's the 4 or 5 songs we need for the ceremony. Here's where our grand entrance is going to be. Here's what our first dance is going to be as well. So you can have those all there in different playlists, which makes it fairly simple to switch around or to have somebody look after. And like I say, you know, it's all your favorites kind of thing. So that's one of the advantages for sure.
And I would even be the bad guy on that is somebody has to manage that. So if you're planning your first dance, somebody needs to have that phone or however you're managing that playlist, iPad, whatever, somebody needs to change the music. So you need to have somebody that you trust to go ahead and do that and efficiently do that as well.
Exactly. And I mean, realistic, like I will not advocate for Spotify as a replacement for a DJ ever.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the expertise of a DJ is having that song at the ready, knowing the timing of most wedding ceremonies or receptions and how they're going to go, knowing the layout of how your reception is going to go because of the meeting you've had with them. It's all advantageous in my head to have somebody dedicated to exactly that to make sure the night flows as it should and the right songs go in the right places.
Yep. So that was the next direction I wanted to go to was talking more about the pitfalls. And you covered some of those, having that timeline that's being managed. And for me, reading the room, as you said, I think is such a big thing. Whereas if you're playing songs from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s and they're not going well, where now you're seeing the most of the people on the dance floor is 20 to 25, it could potentially be different music, and maybe that playlist that you created that you have to stick to is not what's going off. So are there any other pitfalls that you want to mention as far as having a Spotify playlist?
Well, I touched on it already, but again, I'm going to go a little more in depth to it. You set that playlist and hit play. And if you say the crowd changes, if somebody doesn't like a song, now all of a sudden, because it's just there's nobody there looking after the decks, so to speak, there's nobody there looking after the equipment. Anybody could realistically come over and go, I hate this song, and hit the next button. And all of a sudden, if people are dancing, but that person hates that song, now all of a sudden the whole vibe changes and everybody's angry with that person. Everybody that was dancing was angry with that person. The 3 people that were at the table that hated the song with them are not. So it just becomes a whole balancing act that a DJ, like we get skilled at that stuff, dealing with people, knowing what is happening. And you know what, if somebody comes up and says, I hate this song, change it. Well, no, the 30 to 40 people that are dancing out here right now love it. And I think we're going to stick with that. What do you want to hear? We'll get to that in a little bit. Like we can do that kind of thing. A computer, phone, iPad, tablet cannot do that. There's a whole lot going on there. We're not just push and play. That's a big thing. DJs do not just push play. We manage a room. So that's kind of one of the big ones I think that I wanted to touch on for sure.
Another one I will add is if there's a trending song like Shabuzi and it's going off, it's going crazy, and it's not on your playlist, it's not going to be played unless you
Yeah.
have to. Now you're going to have the dead air of changing the song, adding the song, all that stuff.
Yeah, download whatever,
Yeah.
all of it, right? It's yeah, there's a whole lot going on there. Whereas a DJ, while a song is playing, can move on to grab another one and work it into the set. And you know what? If it's going to go off, it's going to go off.
One thing I wanted to ask you is I'm seeing a lot of venues that are incorporating their own systems into their places. Are you seeing that in your area? Time for a quick break from the show to let you know about the Wedding Music Letter. Are you struggling to find the wedding songs that match your personality and music style? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the new wedding songs being released? Then subscribe today to the Wedding Music Letter by going to my website, myweddingsongs.com, and clicking on the Join Now button. Every Wednesday, you'll get song ideas to build your wedding playlists. On the last day of the month, you'll get all of the new wedding songs released from the prior month. So subscribe today and join over 7,000 other engaged couples and wedding pros by going to myweddingsongs.com and joining the Wedding Music Letter today. Now back to the show.
We have the odd one or two or three here that do it. And depending on the place and the system, I personally would rather bring my own stuff anytime, because a lot of times with the in-house sound systems, everything's behind a locked metal door. A lot of times, and this isn't every time, but a lot of times the people that work said venue maybe don't know the exact operation of that system. So who knows how it's going to sound? At least with our own sound equipment, we know exactly how it works. We know exactly where to turn up and turn down and adjust bass and mid and high, right? All this stuff to make it sound right for that room, and placement of speakers, that kind of thing as well. As long as the venue works with us on that, can be a better sound coverage than what they might have. But now if they have a full room system that works best for speeches and that kind of stuff, that covers all the tables without a hot point as DJs might have, then that's a good thing that we can work alongside of them too, right? But yeah, it's happening here and there too.
That's what I'm seeing as well. Speaking of systems, you mentioned couples renting your system. Is that something that you planned on or a direction you wanted to go?
Well, we do audiovisual rentals anyway as well. So we're part of a full service. Like our company does a whole lot of different things outside of just DJing. That's where we started. Don't get me wrong, love it still, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. So yes, we do have some rental inventory to send out as well. So it's there, it's available. If that's the direction you want to go, we can help.
Okay, cool. Let's get more into the actual playlist because of Apple Music and Spotify playlists have become so popular. How can couples use those playlists to best collaborate with you to ensure the successful wedding?
Well, it comes down to that whole meeting. Like, and if they're hearing songs that they love and like, oh God, that has to be played at our wedding, then you can add that to a Spotify playlist that we can then be connected to, right? And we can look at, okay, here's the stuff that they want. And because that's streaming legally, we aren't supposed to use that stuff. We are supposed to pay for the song. And so the artist gets their royalties. So once I have those playlists, and I've had many couples do that for me, I will download and pay for each and every one of those songs. So I have the actual physical copy on my hard drive and a backup thereof too, right? So there's always that technical background stuff of let's make sure that what they want is happening. And so it's a great thing for them that, hey, we're driving along. I want that song at the wedding. Bang, add it to the Spotify playlist. Now, a week before your wedding or 2 weeks before your wedding, I'm downloading it and it's going to be there. So it's a great tool to be used alongside what your DJ can do as well.
I think that's a great point as well. You're talking about streaming. How many places are you DJing that there is no internet?
That's that's the other. I mean, a lot of guys will have their rocket sticks or whatever, but even still, out here in Alberta, we've got a lot of rural areas where unless it's a satellite link, Starlink maybe, you're still not getting internet service. There's no cell service in that area, right? And the same could be said, I'm sure, for a lot of states out there too, that yeah, if you're out in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing but farms around you for miles and miles, there still may not be internet service, data, whatever the case may be. So again, that comes down, and inside of a metal building, right? All of a sudden, all cell signal goes away. And you hope they have Wi-Fi. Maybe they don't. Now what? All discussions that have to be had with your venues well in advance. So make sure you're talking about that for sure.
Do you think that DJs are streaming from Spotify for their weddings? Is that a big issue right now?
Guaranteed. Yeah, of course. It's going to happen. And some of the DJ softwares link up with Spotify's and titles and that kind of stuff, which means it's very gray area stuff. But I'm not going to play in the gray area if humanly possible. I would much rather own said song and make sure I have that file with me.
One of the things that I recently experienced is the quality of a song on Spotify, where I'm listening to it and the quality was extremely low. And then I would play the next song, it went way up, and I'm just like, this is not good. I feel bad for the people that are trying to stream this for any kind of event.
Well, exactly. And again, going back to let's toot our horns as DJs, right? We have ways to make it sound better, and we know because we're previewing in our headphones, we have that ability, whereas Spotify list does not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the future of streaming music?
You know what? It's proliferated enough to the point that there's no going back, I don't think, unless a good chunk of artists, and you hear about the one here, the one there that do it, but no, unless like 80% of them join up and say, no more of this. Spotify's owner cannot be a multi-billionaire while we make less than 1,000th of 1 cent per stream. I don't think it's going to change. I think that's kind of where it's going. And governments need to figure out how they're going to regulate and make sure that the artists, the people that make this music, get paid for what they're doing.
100% agree. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations about that, and just seeing where we are now and where we're headed. Garth Brooks not being on Spotify is not enough. I personally don't even think Taylor Swift not being on Spotify is enough. I think a new platform has to be made, because like you said, why would the owners of Spotify want to make that much less?
Yeah.
It's just,
well, that's it. I mean, you've become a billionaire on it, and it's like most artists are on there. Taylor wasn't on Spotify for a while, if you remember, but even she then realized that in order to get the music to the masses, that's the only way she could. So yeah, until somebody goes, you know what, I'd be happy with a couple $100 million as a worth, while the artists still make a better chunk of money than what's on that. And then you're right, just Garth not doing it isn't enough. But if Garth, Taylor, Beyonce, Jay-Z, right? And everybody steps up and does it, or a good chunk of them. But even Jay-Z tried, I don't know. Yeah, like there's a whole lot going on out there that, it's a wild west that needs to be figured out. But we have to play in the pool. However, the rules aren't set. So we got to figure it out as we go.
So we are the Wedding Songs podcast. So I have to ask you a little bit about music. What songs do you think are trending right now for your summer weddings?
So you know what? You mentioned the shaboozis. The hot stuff is always going to be the hot stuff. It's funny though, in the last number of years, Matt, and you might have noticed this too, there's less of the newer music being requested. It's still the stuff that people can dance to and have a party to. So there's a lot of that 2000s and 2000 and early 2010 stuff with the Pitfalls and that kind of stuff are still going off, because people it's got that right beat, the right beats per minute that people can dance to. The newer stuff, less so, There's the odd one here and there that comes out that's still a good hit and people can dance to, but they don't stick around as long either.
Yep. One trend that I think is really fascinating is, I would consider it a genreless era, whereas you see the crossovers with, Post Malone's working with Beyonce, Taylor Swift, other artists, and then you have Kane Brown working with Marshmello. I just see a genreless, we all talk about inclusivity, and I think music's really headed that way as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. You mentioned Kane Brown is a perfect example. Kane, country, hip hop, right? Like he's right in the middle or both of those at all times, and you can go back to even a few years back. The country artist who is more pop Body Like a Back Road, right? Like that kind of.
Sam
So
Hunt.
it's Sam Hunt is exactly it. So it crossed so many pop lines that you're right, genreless. It's still country, but it's also pop. It's pop, but it's also country. So yeah, I mean, and there's been artists blurring that for years. It's just, I think, becoming more prominent in recent years.
The Taylor Swift, all the guff she got from going from country to pop. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Yeah, but
I think it worked out for her.
Yeah, but exactly what you're saying. Before she left, it was kind of poppy anyway. So
yeah,
what's the difference?
Just took an extra step is really all it was.
Exactly. So talking about Spotify lists, is there anything that we missed as part of, that you wanted to cover today?
I think really just to kind of sum it up, it's a tool to be used, and it can be depending on what you're going for. Everybody's got a different vibe that they're looking for their weddings. If you're more of I haven't seen my family in years, and we only get together at weddings and funerals, and so let's visit for the night and get a few dances off, it's something that can be used. If the party is the important part, and remember, that's what people are going to talk about in 20 years. So that's what I shoot for every single time too, is they're going to remember whether they had a great time at your wedding or not. They're not going to remember the decorations most times, kind of thing. So if the party is what's important to you, then a DJ, a professional DJ, not a part-time hobbyist kind of thing, is the person you're going to want to go for. So, and use Spotify as a tool to guide them in exactly what you're looking for. And then you'll get the vibe you want. I think that's really the big thing. It's a tool to be used.
And going off of that as well, I love the idea of couples creating a playlist, having your personality when it's cocktail hour, when it's dinner. That's when you play those songs, but giving liberty to the DJ during the dancing time, because what you think may work for your crowd, maybe it will, maybe it won't. That's up to the DJ to switch it up and pack the dance floor.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. Give them a guideline, work with them, but allow them to do what they do best. And that's read that room, play the songs that typically work well for the crowd, and learn as you go. They can also shut it off. It's funny, back when we used CDs, it was easy. You would take the CD out and throw it away, right? And have, okay, that one didn't work, off to the next one. But now you fade out and on to the next song kind of thing. It makes it, switch genre. Okay, cool. Have fun with it.
You're making me feel old. I remember the invention of cassette singles. Oh my gosh, I don't have to buy the whole cassette. I only have to spend like 99 cents or $1.99 instead of $10 for the whole thing.
When I started my first DJ job, my first real DJ job was on cassettes. When we fell into DJing in high school, we used the CDs that we had kind of thing, and cassettes. But yeah, it was all on cassettes, compilation cassettes, and having to listen to, I'm old too, Matt. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I think that's a great place to stop. So where can listeners connect with you and follow along?
Realistically, our website, advancedentertainment.ca, is probably the best. Being Canadian.ca makes sense. There is already another Advanced Entertainment somewhere in the States, so he had .com wrapped up. But that's the best place to connect with us as well. Online on Instagram, you can see all the stuff we do as well. We are Advanced Entertainment Canada there.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, Tarcy, for being on the show today. If you're thinking about a Spotify playlist, hopefully this has helped you out making the decision. And stay tuned for next week. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.